Hello and welcome to this video on Units 3 and 4. I'm going to go over the discussion boards for Units 3 and 4, what is expected for the discussion boards for Unit 3 and 4, and then also the assignment for Unit 4. So for Unit 3 discussion board, here are the directions. Describe the primary point of view that you use to guide your thinking. What are the strengths and weaknesses of your view? Point of view is one of the elements that's covered in Chapter 4, so make sure you read Chapter 4 very carefully and you pay close attention to point of view. Basically, it is the way that we look at things. What is really important here as well is that you explain exactly what activated ignorance means. So make sure that you've read the section on activated ignorance and you apply that idea of activated ignorance to a specific event in your life. Okay, so that's the Unit 3 discussion board. Let's go on to the Unit 4 discussion board. This one is pretty open-ended. You could talk about your intellectual journey and education. Notice that A, B, and C here require you to apply 3 of the elements. And again, that's Chapter 4 in your textbook. It requires for you to apply 3 of the elements to your intellectual journey. So purpose is an element, information is another element, and questions is another element. So you have to have these elements in mind and be able to clearly articulate what those elements mean, or show that you understand what those elements mean as you answer this discussion board question. And again, that's Chapter 4. And then finally, the Unit 4 PowerPoint presentation. So again, what I want to emphasize here are the fact that you need to engage the textbook, that you have read the sections that are relevant here. The analysis part, the pages that you need to look at there are pages 139 and 40 for the analysis part. So make sure that you have engaged those pages. And then another part that's important here is that you apply the elements and or standards. So I'll leave this pretty open-ended in terms of the elements and standards. Remember, there's a difference between the elements and standards, but you could apply both. The elements are found on page 62. And then remember, the standards are in Chapter 5. So the elements are Chapter 4 and the standards are Chapter 5. Make sure that you've engaged those when you're answering this prompt about an important problem that society faces today. Okay, and lastly here, you have to clearly explain why the questions that you have raised are either a question of fact, preference, or judgment. This part is very important. You need to show that you understand the difference between a question of fact, a question of preference, and a question of judgment. And so what you want to look at pages 126 through 127 of the textbook in order to have a good understanding of those kinds of questions. If the question you're raising is a question of judgment, you need to explain why it is a question of judgment. So that presupposes that you know exactly what a question of judgment is. And then the same thing goes with preference. So make sure you know you show that you understand the difference between those 3 types of questions. Okay, so that's it. And you can follow the suggestions here for the slides. Again, remember that if you are quoting something from the textbook or any other source, that you use quotation marks and you cite exactly where you're getting that information from. Okay, hope this helps.